They poured a milkshake on a waiter's head. And that was the worst mistake they ever made in their life. Marcus Cole had been working at Riverside Diner for 8 months. He was 52 years old, quiet, always on time, never complained. His coworkers liked him. Customers mostly ignored him. He wore the same white apron every shift, kept his head down, refilled coffee without being asked, and smiled even when people were rude to him. And people were often rude to him, but nobody, not one single person in that diner, knew what Marcus had done before he started taking orders. Nobody knew where he had been, what he had survived, what he had sacrificed. This is the story of a man who was pushed too far, in front of too many people on the wrong day, and what happened next changed everyone who witnessed it, including his own daughter. Marcus grew up in a small town in Georgia. No money, no connections, no plan. At 18, he walked into a Navy recruiting office and signed his name on a piece of paper that would define the next 25 years of his life. He didn't just join the Navy. He went for the hardest thing they had. Bud-S training, basic underwater. Demolition is considered one of the most brutal military training programs on the planet. The dropout rate sits at around 75 to 80%. Most people quit in the first week, during a phase called Hell Week, where candidates are pushed for 5.5 straight days on, less than 4 hours of sleep total. They run over 200 miles. They do physical training for over 20 hours every single day. They go into freezing cold water over and over until their body begs them to stop. Marcus didn't stop. He made it through. He became a Navy SEAL. And over the next 2.5 decades, he served in some of the most dangerous places in the world. His file had things in it most people will never know about. Missions that don't get talked about at dinner tables. Moments where one wrong decision meant you didn't come home. He came home every time. But war does something to a person. It takes pieces of you and keeps them. By the time Marcus retired, he had a bad knee from a jump gone wrong in Afghanistan, a hearing loss in his left ear, and a silence inside him that was hard to explain to people who hadn't been there. His marriage didn't survive. His daughter Lily was 17 when he finally came back for good. She barely knew him. To her, he was just a man who was absent her entire childhood. She didn't see a hero. She saw a stranger. And Marcus, who had once led teams of elite warriors into enemy territory, had no idea how to talk to his own kid. He took the job at the diner, not because he needed money desperately, but because he needed something to do with his hands. Something simple. Something where no one was in danger. His therapist had actually suggested it. Routine. Low stress. Human interaction without high stakes. What nobody told Marcus was that some humans are just mean for no reason. The group came in on a Saturday afternoon. 4 of them. Loud from the moment they walked in the door. They ordered big. Burgers, fries, milkshakes, the works. Marcus took their order politely, brought everything out correctly, checked on them twice. That's when it started. One of them, a guy in his 30s with a red cap and too much confidence, started complaining. Said his burger was cold. Marcus apologized, offered to get a new one. The guy said it was too late. He'd already eaten half of it. Then he complained the fries were soggy. Then the Coke wasn't cold enough. Every time Marcus responded calmly, the guy got a little louder, a little more aggressive, like he was performing for his friends, like he needed an audience to be cruel. Lily was there that day. She sometimes came by after school and sat in the corner booth doing homework, while her dad finished his shift. She watched all of this happening, and here's the painful part. She felt embarrassed. Not angry on her father's behalf, embarrassed. She slouched down in her seat and looked at her phone. The man in the red cap snapped his fingers at Marcus, snapped his fingers, like he was calling a dog. Marcus walked over, kept his face calm, asked what he needed. The man picked up his milkshake. Chocolate, nearly full, looked Marcus dead in the eyes and poured it slowly over his head. The diner went quiet. Chocolate milkshake dripped down Marcus's face into his collar, onto his apron. A few people gasped. Someone at another table stood up halfway. The group laughed. The man in the red cap leaned back like he had just done something impressive, and Marcus stood there, completely still, dripping, eyes forward. Not because he was afraid, because he was choosing. See, here's something they teach you when you go through the kind of training Marcus went through. Control is not weakness. Stillness is not fear. The most dangerous man in the room is usually the quietest one, because he already knows exactly what he's capable of, and he's decided not to use it. Marcus had been in rooms where one mistake meant people died. He had made decisions under pressure that most people can't even imagine. A man pouring a milkshake on him was not a threat. It was just sad. He reached up slowly, wiped his face with his apron, and said quietly, calmly, "You need to leave now." That was it. No yelling, no threats, no breaking down. The man laughed again and said something dismissive. That's when the diner manager came over. And that's when another customer, a veteran himself, as it turned out, stood up and said loudly, "You should know who you're talking to." He pulled out his phone and showed something to the group. Nobody in the diner knew what it was in that moment. But the man in the red cap's face changed. The laughter disappeared. He looked at Marcus differently. He started to say something, then stopped. His friends had gone quiet. They paid their bill, overtipped by a lot, probably out of panic, and left without another word. Later, it came out that the customer had looked Marcus up after seeing a small military tattoo on his forearm and recognizing the unit insignia. He had found his service record. Marcus had 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star. He had been part of operations that saved lives, plural, many. He had served his country in ways that the man in the red cap would never come close to. Lily had watched all of it from her corner booth, and something shifted in her. She had spent years being angry at a father who was never home, never present, never there for birthdays and graduations and regular Tuesday nights. She had built a story in her head that he just didn't care enough to stay. But watching him stand there, dripping, calm, choosing patience over power, she started to understand something. The same discipline that kept him away from her all those years was the exact same discipline that made him who he was. She didn't have to agree with all of it, but she finally saw him clearly. She walked over after the group left, grabbed a handful of napkins from the dispenser, and helped him clean off his face. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. That was the beginning of something between them. Not fixed overnight, real things never are, but started. And that matters. Marcus still works at the diner. He didn't want a big story made about him. He didn't want attention. But people talked, the way people always do, and the story got out anyway. What people keep coming back to is this: he could have reacted differently. He had the training, the strength, the ability to make that situation go very badly for the other guy, and he chose not to. Every single time we get the choice between reacting and responding, the strongest people choose to respond. A man who survived Hell Week, enemy fire, and the kind of darkness most of us only see in movies, was brought to his knees by nothing. Not by a milkshake, not by a cruel stranger, because he knew exactly who he was, and nobody could take that from him. Watch the next video on screen. You won't want to miss it.